Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Good afternoon. Getting right down to serious business here. We're doing it live, doing more at 4 weekday afternoons, live on the air. Mottek On Money and 790 KBC, streaming live online worldwide at kbc.com. And the on-demand Mottek On Money podcast, kbc.com, Apple, iTunes, YouTube, all your favorite podcast platforms. It has happened. Israel launches attacks to wipe out Iran's nuclear program, military leaders, and nuclear scientists. Israel now coming under attack by Iranian missiles. We're watching the latest bulletins very, very closely for you this hour. It was just about 24 hours ago that the Israeli Defense Forces launched a comprehensive military strike on Iran following months of unsuccessful negotiations over Iran's nuclear program. Israel carrying out airstrikes on Iran on its nuclear sites. Explosions also heard in the capital, Tehran. Israel launching Operation Rising Lion to target Iran's nuclear and missile infrastructure. Iran launching retaliatory large-scale ballistic missile attacks on Israeli cities, and those attacks are continuing. In all this, the commander-in-chief of the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps was killed during the Israel airstrikes on Iran. We saw a reaction immediately in the financial markets, with stocks moving lower after the Israeli attack on Iran and Iran's retaliation, also shaking global markets, pushing the price of oil to the highest we've seen since January. Suddenly the price of crude is up more than $5 at $73.18 a barrel. We've also seen reaction in the precious metals markets, with gold popping more than $50 higher at $3,452.70 an ounce. Silver at $36.37 an ounce. Platinum pulling back in all this, down more than $63 at $1,212 an ounce. The cryptos moving mostly higher today, with Bitcoin hovering just below 106,000, Ethereum at 2,563, Doge at the moment at 18 cents. The major stock market averages moved sharply lower, the Dow closing down nearly 800 points, the S&P 500 down 68, and the Nasdaq down 256 points. The yield in the 10-year note at 4.41%, and the VIX index, the volatility index, Wall Street's fear index, spiked 15%. The major stock market averages hit session lows after Israeli Defense Forces announced dozens of Iranian missiles were launched at Israel, and all of Israel is under fire. That's the quote that the Israeli Defense Forces released in their statement. Iran called Israel's strike a declaration of war. The Iranian response coming after Israel conducted overnight what it called a preemptive strike against Iranian targets, citing development of nuclear weapons in Iran. The Israeli Prime Minister has vowed that the operation against Iran's nuclear and military facilities would continue for as many days as it takes. We're watching all of these developments heading into the weekend. President Trump urging Iran to make a deal over its nuclear program to avert further conflict. In a post he put out today on social media, he said, "Just do it before it's too late." Iran had threatened to target American assets in the Middle East as part of its response. Earlier, we heard from Secretary of State Marco Rubio, said Israel took unilateral action with no U.S. involvement as he warned Iran against targeting U.S. interests and personnel. The dramatic developments coming as stocks have been moving higher earlier in the week, with China trade talks in focus, and President Trump also indicating the idea of hiking automobile tariffs a day after he said he would impose unilateral tariff rates on countries within a couple of weeks. That was the big deal earlier this week. He also repeated his call for a rate cut from the Federal Reserve, which is having its big meeting next week. Israel's military strikes against Iran impacting the financial markets, especially the oil markets, very nervous at this time, and whether the Strait of Hormuz, one of the world's most vital energy transit choke points, will be impacted. If that route is disrupted, it could disrupt oil and gas supplies, potentially unleashing higher oil prices and indeed a wave of inflation, which has been largely controlled due to lower energy prices. I'll discuss the latest on the Middle East with Rabbi Abraham Cooper later this hour. He's the Associate Dean and Director of Global Social Action for the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance in West Los Angeles. We're also watching what's happening in downtown LA following this week's protests, demonstrations, and violence there after the federal government's move to enforce immigration laws in LA and bolster security of federal facilities, including courthouses, jails, and offices. National Guard troops and U.S. Marines here in downtown L.A. I'll discuss the latest with Mark Wilbur, chair of Employers Group and founding member of and former chair of L.A. BizFed, former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business. But first, on this historic day on your money, the markets, and the economy, and the whole works now, joining us live, Brian Perry, investment expert, BrianPerryInvesting.com, currently chief investment strategist and portfolio manager for a major money management firm back east, also author of the 25% Cash Machine, senior editor at Eagle Financial Publications. Brian Perry, thank you very much for taking the call here this afternoon.
It's always great to be with you, Frank, and what a way to close out a Friday here on really heightened tensions, both domestically and internationally. The stock market actually behaved itself pretty well here, closing down roughly 1.12% here on the S&P 500, which is, that's a win on a day like this. The market finished the week on a very tough note, as concerns, going into the weekend here about escalation of tensions between Israel and Iran really won over the fear of missing out on the upside in equities here earlier in the week. The equities, started with losses here when the news hit, that Israel struck Iran nuclear facilities overnight, and the attack prompted a spike in oil, which obviously started the whole day making for a really tough session here, and it just makes for what you have is a confluence of certain things that they're convergent on themselves here. So with that in mind, short of World War III, which I don't think is really developing here. Normally, these are buying opportunities, but this is a bigger deal because normally this war thing has been a proxy war by Houthis and Hezbollah and Hamas and all that, but now they're firing on each other directly, Israel and Iran. And obviously, we got involved in here because a lot of the protective interceptor weapons were fired from the ocean today to help, augment the coming in of hundreds of Iranian missiles, some of which got through. This is not done. And so by any means, the next wave here, and I'm not sure why they didn't do this on the first round, but, you had the oil infrastructure of Iran is their oxygen, and that's really what I think is what needs to be considered here as the next wave of where the attacks need to go from Israel, and that's going to be in the lower part of the country there, on where they export their oil. From there, Frank, that's probably where this is going to go for the next several days here. You've got Trump wants to do a deal, and a no nuke deal, and Israel's going to eviscerate their oil infrastructure grid. And the Abadan refinery, the Cargill, and what is called the Persian State Refinery, the Bandar Abbas refinery, and any entry into the Strait of Hormuz, if there's no deal. And so this is what could escalate into this if Iran doesn't come to the table into the weekend here. So obviously the thing to do right now is to sit tight, watch news. There's not a political scientist in the world that's got this figured out at this moment in time because it's so fluid. And as we speak, there was just another wave, the third wave of attacks from Iran on Israel. So going into the weekend here, it's tough. But I think ultimately in the big picture, the U.S. will support Israel in this, and Iran will run out of weaponry and will shut down their oil infrastructure and basically cut them off, at their supply line, which is their oxygen tube, which is oil to the rest of the world. If that's the case, then this will truly be looked at, going forward, this will be looked at as a really good buying opportunity. But people should wait to see how this kind of starts to unfold, because Iran is going to send a bunch of cells around the world to try to hit U.S. assets. That's without question. That's happened before. We saw that at the Marriott in India years ago, and other places. So it's important that people just kind of keep their portfolios intact. If you have good stocks, know that America has two oceans between its lands, and we're protected from most of this. but at the same time, we're also involved. We have key interest in protecting this. And at the same time, you had a lot of rich nations there, Saudi Arabia and other rich nations that really want to do mega deals, mega AI deals with the U.S. So hopefully, Iran clearly sees the red on their screens pointed at their nuke and oil assets, and know that this is not a long-term situation if they keep this up. And at the same time, I think most of the Middle East is on the side of the U.S. on this, in terms of bringing them in, if it means that we have to back them militarily. Frank.
On the air live with investment expert Brian Perry at BrianPerryInvesting.com. Thank you for that thorough analysis here, Brian Perry. And as far as reaction, obviously oil markets, especially nervous and in reaction to what's happened. Oil suddenly above $73 a barrel here. I think it was even higher earlier. Gold popping more than $50, near its all-time high of $3,452 and change here at the moment. And we're watching, of course, a reaction pretty much in every corner of the financial markets as we get set for that Fed meeting next week, and obviously the other things happening, tariffs and trade, this shooting war now between Iran and Israel taking center stage here. What do you see in the week ahead here? Obviously, a lot of uncertainties here, but if Iran does attack U.S. installations, what might we expect? Take us through the different scenarios here.
Okay. Well, first of all, the tariff deal is done with China, and it's a 55%. Tariff on Chinese imports and a 10% tariff on U.S. imports into China. That's quite a striking deal in my book, because that's really, that's why you saw stocks like Costco and Walmart and other names that do a lot of business, in terms of bringing in Chinese-made goods, trade down during the course of the week here. And a lot of that's tied to fentanyl imports. So, if the fentanyl trade, curtails, then 25% of that, 55% will come off, but there has to be, it has to be verifiable. Bonds, moving on to other, I guess, with bonds trading higher today, that was more about a reaction to oil spiking from the standpoint of what it's going to add to the inflation, component. And with the Fed meeting next week here, they're in a box. You had really great inflation reports here this week with consumer price index and producer price index, both of which traded, under expectations. So we're moving closer to the 2%, core inflation rate, which is their target rate. And at the same time, there's hairline cracks in the job market right now. We've had two big revisions for March and April come down. 110,000 jobs have been revised lower from both the March and April read on non-farm payrolls. That's a big haircut. And you've also got, continuing jobless claims running at a 4-month high, and actually almost at a 2-year high. So there's signs of lower hiring at this point in time, and that's got, also with the with inflation basically where it's at now. You just had this pop in energy. That's going to bring back, fears of a renewed inflationary and also supply chain issues if the Strait of Hormuz is shut down. So there's issues there. Beyond that, the Mag 7 is back, and it's back in action here because of all the renewed confirmation of huge spending, CapEx spending here in this area here. So you got Microsoft hitting all-time highs, and you've got Amazon and Meta, and even Alphabet here moving higher here. NVIDIA obviously trading up near its all-time high, and if you had to add an eighth name in this Mag 7, call it the Grade 8, I'd call Broadcom, AVGO, another name here to consider here. So during these times of turmoil, when you have these secular trends in place like AI, which has been proven to be maybe in only the first 2 or 3 innings of a major secular, spending wave, which is as big as the internet as far as we know, then it's a good time for people to start, making their short list here, because it's only during times of chaos like this do you get a chance to buy these stocks on the cheap. And they don't come in much because there's massive accumulation by funds and institutional and sovereign funds in these names, because they see it, and you got to follow the money. And when the money goes into these names here and really is showing that, this is where the market is, it's somewhat narrow, but it's showing this kind of leadership, then that's where you get these types of time, these periods of time of political chaos to lean into what are futuristic and secular trends for technology, and that's what we do best in America, Frank.
On the air with Brian Perry at brianperryinvesting.com. Thank you very much for you're always very thoughtful and serious commentary and analysis here, Brian Perry. At this point, given even more uncertainty nowadays, any specific places where you would be putting money now and or taking it off the table?
Absolutely. There's some really great things happening here, during these times of what we would call uncertainty. The liquid natural gas market around the world is just exploding higher. So the demand for liquid natural gas, or LNG, puts there's two names that come into place here. One is EQT Corp, and that's the largest natural gas provider in all of America. The symbol is EQT. And then when you freeze it, to 260 degrees below Celsius, it becomes liquid, natural gas. And then we can export that as liquid around the world. And the number one exporter of liquid natural gas from the United States is Cheniere Energy, symbol LNG. Both stocks they've been trading in these long bases for like several months and are both breaking out. So LNG and EQT was a 1-2 punch, for the natural gas industry. And that just serves what is the fastest growing fossil fuel U.S. fuel, because it's clean, it's green, it's here, and it's abundant. It's also the number one export for fuel here also. I've been buying more Broadcom here on this pullback here. They had great numbers here. This is kind of a duopoly between Broadcom and NVIDIA in terms of the AI chip business here. Rocket Mortgage, consider how, if the Fed, the bond futures has the Fed lowering rates by 50 basis points here in the next 6 months, that business they're the largest mortgage broker in America. And at a price of like $13, there's real upside there. And you've got some activists that are starting to talk about it. I love the SoFi Bank in your own backyard, Frank. In terms of the Gen Z and the millennials, using online banking as their number one go-to. And so SOFI makes sense here. And quite frankly, I've been picking up some Cisco systems here. They've made some great strides here, and the stock looks like it wants to break out higher. Amazon looks great here. Fox looks really good here. Fox, FOXA, network. They've got this Tibu network here, which is taken off, and they've got a lot of big sports franchising going on. So Fox Networks looks like it wants to break out. And lastly, but not least, in your own backyard, with all the wildfires that took place here, there's an interesting story here that it deserves everyone's attention. It's called General Enterprise Ventures. This is just a $2 stock, but they engage in installation of large home and commercial facilities of proactive wildfire prevention systems. So they offer this thing called Citrotech, which it prevents wildfire. It's like a big rainbird sprinkler system that is there's actually very plant free and all that kind of stuff. It's environmentally non-toxic. So it's like an interesting story. GEVI is the symbol, as a real spec play, but it's already been licensed by the San Diego Fire Department, and other places in LA are running it through beta tests right now. So I think that's a really cool story going forward here, and you can operate it from your smartphone to defend your property even if you're out of town. So this is one that after all that you folks went through last year, it's like, what do I do in terms of a foam or a gel-based fire retardant solution? These guys got the solution here, and the stock, and apparently it's going to be there's an uplisting here going to the Nasdaq or NYSE, and they're going to do maybe a reverse stock split to bring the stock up to $10 from $2, so that institutions can buy it, because normally they're restricted to buy in stocks that are only above $5. So I like that kind of story, and coming off the travel stocks, certainly with the now that a lot of U.S. assets are in the gun sights of these Iranian cells. We got to be very careful there about travel. Adobe missed their expectations for their AI futuristic modeling, and so Adobe is such a great name, it is sold off. And then certainly Boeing, after what went through with the crash in India here, the jury's out as to what happened there, whether it was the GE engines or whether it was Boeing, their flight system, or whether it was bad piloting. So I think you just got to avoid that for now, even though it's been a great story. It was one of the great recovery stories of the year to date, but it's one you just need to stand by and see how that shapes out.
On here live with Brian Perry at BrianPerryInvesting.com, and Boeing also a defense name. It should be noted Northrop Grumman stock moved sharply higher today in an otherwise down market of nearly $20 at 516 and change. General Dynamics of more than $3 at 283. What about these?
I think it's from the standpoint, Frank, you want to cast a net over the defense industry because the world is getting more chaotic, and this is the kind of time when the U.S. gets occupied in a 2 or 3 theater war that we're not really equipped for that right now. We can do a 1 theater war, but really not a 2 theater war effectively. So ITA, which is the iShares U.S. Aerospace and Defense ETF, that owns all these names: Northrop Grumman, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, TransDigm, Boeing, GE. All the big names and all the hot drone names and any of the intelligence names as well. So like Palantir. So it's important that people just say, okay, I want to own the defense aerospace, and also the space race thing as well. ITA is the way to go. The stock it's up 18% year to date. It's just kicking the averages all around, and I just think that's people should have a component of that in their portfolio, because on days like this it trades well. It traded up today, not quite 0.5%, but on a day when you got.
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
The United States Soccer Federation presents the U.S. Soccer Podcast.
Inside the opening 45 seconds. What a goal!
Jack McGlynn with that cannon of a left foot.
Never miss a game.
What a start for the United States.
Shot from distance. What a goal!
Never miss a moment.
Exquisite from the San Diegan.
Can he finish? Yes, he can! Yeah!
The U.S. Soccer Podcast. Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
Market down almost 800 points. You like to have a few positions that are trading, against the tape.
Brian Perry, appreciate it very, very much, Brian, and we wish you a good weekend, and look forward to speaking with you again next week. That is Brian Perry with BrianPerryInvestment.com, also author of the 25% Cash Machine, senior editor at Eagle Financial Publications. Brian Perry, thank you very, very much for taking the call here on this critical day here this afternoon.
Okay, and Frank, just for everybody out there, hold your gold, and you, Frank, as well. Just have a wonderful, happy Father's Day. I mean that.
Happy Father's Day to you and all the dads out there. That's right. Back to the freeways now here in Southern California on 790 KABC. There he is, 790 KABC welcomes the one and only Engelbert Humperdinck coming to the Saban Theater tomorrow, June 14th. Tickets on sale now at AXS.com. Right now, caller 9 wins at 1-888-795-2222. You can get a pair of tickets to the show if you're caller number 9. Call right now, 1-888-795-2222. The tickets furnished by the Saban at the Canyon, where music meets the soul. Stocks moving sharply lower today as Israel attacks Iran's nuclear program and Iran retaliates. And missiles continue to fall on various parts of Israel. We're monitoring the latest headlines here. The Dow closing down nearly 800 points. The S&P 500 down 68. And the NASDAQ down 256. Yield in the 10-year note now 4.41%. The volatility index spiking 15% today. Gold popping higher, more than $50 at $3,452 and change. Silver today did move higher as well at $36.37 an ounce. Platinum down $63 at $1,212 an ounce. Checking Bitcoin now, it's at 105,717. Ethereum at 15 at 2563, and Doge at the moment at 18 cents. And now the latest news on 790 KABC. Mottek On Money continues here in 790 KABC. Major developments in the Middle East over the past 24 hours. Israel launching attacks to wipe out Iran's nuclear program. Military leaders and nuclear scientists. Israel now coming under attack by Iranian missiles. So far, Iran has fired at least 150 ballistic missiles at Israel and 2 barrages, according to the latest reports from the Israeli Defense Forces. There have been reports of numerous impact sites, including Tel Aviv. We're monitoring the latest reports. The IDF launched the comprehensive military strike on Iran just about 24 hours ago, following months of unsuccessful negotiations over Iran's nuclear program, and all of this following the Hamas terror attack on Israel on October 7th, 2023. Joining us live now, Rabbi Abraham Cooper, Associate Dean and Director of Global Social Action for the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance in West Los Angeles. Rabbi, thank you very much for coming to the line live with us here this afternoon.
Hi, Frank. How you doing?
Wow. Epic news here. What's your reaction to these major developments here in the last 24 hours?
Well, first, just to speak very personally, I have 2 daughters, 8 grandchildren, and a great-grandson in Jerusalem. And I spoke with some of them at about 3:30 a.m. Israel time on Friday morning. And there was a sense that this particular episode was going to be different, that Friday night and Shabbat, which is already started in Israel, would be different, probably in shelters. And in fact, that's what has happened. So I think for a lot of Angelenos, what's going on now is extremely personal, extremely worrying. But I think at the same time, there's for a very tired population and Israeli military, a grim determination to see it through. And since President Trump, who used all of his negotiating skills to try to get the Iranian regime to come to its senses and not make the final move towards somewhere between 5 and 15 nuclear bombs, with all these ballistic missiles already pre-cooked to utilize, Israel had no choice. And I think the other point for everyone to understand is that the entire neighborhood, including countries that have no relations with Israel or are traditional enemies, the Arab countries in the region are all praying that Israel will, in the end, succeed to knock out Iran, because almost every problem right now in that region can be traced back to the Ayatollah. So it's a very, very tough time. And if I may add, Frank, maybe we would have been speaking anyway, because this past Tuesday and Wednesday, I was in Damascus, Syria, a place I never thought I would be, meeting with the president of that country and with Christian leaders. And clearly, with things changing, especially with Hezbollah now greatly weakened, and with Iran even before this latest round, being brought down a couple of notches, the potential at the end of this very difficult period, we pray for all the innocents in the region, very good things will come out of this if the Iranian regime is totally weakened, and even better for the long-suffering Iranian people if...
Looking for a degree program that rewards you for what you already know? At WGU, all of our bachelor's and master's programs are competency-based, allowing you to progress at your own pace. Washingtonians know how valuable time and money are, and so do we. At WGU, your hard work and experience can help you finish your degree faster and for less. Join a community of driven professionals from across the DMV who are unlocking new career opportunities today. See how your knowledge can give you an edge at wgu.edu.
Expert entrepreneur Ed Milet is on a mission to max out your life.
We're throwing open the metaphorical closet doors of our lives. We're going to be cleaning out the closet. What no longer fits? Audit some of your relationships. How about auditing your emotions? Maybe it's your career you need to look at. Get your life together for this season.
The Ed Milet Show.
It's time for a little cleaning of the soul. Let's get a little ruthless, a little refreshing, and a little real. God bless you, everyone.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.
The Ayatollah and his gang are actually removed or destroyed.
On the air live with Rabbi Abraham Cooper, and we pray for the safety of your family in Israel, Rabbi, and thanks for sharing your personal story there with your family there. It was just a day after the Hamas terror attack on Israel on October 7, 2023. The Wall Street Journal, I believe the very next day, laid out how Iran had its hands all over that attack, and now it has happened. Israel taking action now to finally wipe out their entire nuclear program. What's the latest reports you're getting about how this effort is going? All of the sites appear to be hit at this time.
Well, not all of them. And I think also it's very important for the listeners to understand is that Israel, at least in the first phase, was trying to take off the head of the snake. The people who were killed were their military leaders. The Iranian missiles overwhelmingly are targeting civilian population centers. And while they did manage to, I'm sure, hit some sensitive locations, we're talking about a terrorist regime using its tremendous power to spread death and destruction among civilian populations, with Israel trying to be the surgeon with scalpels going in and trying to degrade this regime to either bring them to the table or get rid of them altogether. Beyond that, I think the President of the United States deserves credit for holding out the possibility and sending Mr. Witkoff back numerous times to see if there was some way to avoid what has just happened. But as he said, he gave the Iranian regime 60 days, and today is the 61st day. And I think the Iranians have misread his resolve in the United States. And also let's remember that the Iranian regime over the decades has killed many, many innocent American civilians and targeted directly and through its proxies in Iraq and elsewhere, brought great suffering and death to American military personnel as well. So it's hard to read what's going to happen in the next few days. And there are one or two major sites, nuclear sites, that were created right in the bottom of a huge mountain, and would take the type of bunker busters that I believe that only the United States is in a position to deliver. So we are, I think, only at the beginning of this particular war. I think it is a war. But I think, unlike most other wars, at least for this observer, if Israel's successful in knocking out this regime's nefarious capabilities and maybe helping to liberate the long-suffering people of Iran, I can already tell you from my visit to Syria, which finally, because of what the Israelis did to the Iranians previously and defeating Hezbollah, they finally were able to get rid of the Assad regime. And so I think, despite these difficult times, including those I described, personally, this is a just war. Israel has done incredible homework in terms of, targeting sometimes missiles through bedroom windows. It's just almost beyond belief. It kind of reads almost like a novel, but this is reality. And the Iranian regime still has a stockpile of hundreds of missiles, and Israel's, their version of Star Wars, have been able to knock out the vast majority of those missiles so far. But you can't bat 1,000. And for those that get through, we've seen the incredible destructive power of these ballistic missiles.
Rabbi, I wish we had more time and have to find a way to have more extended conversations with you. We pray for Israel and wish you and your family all the very best. And also want to take a moment to honor the memory of Anne Frank, whose birthday, I believe, was yesterday. Anne Frank of blessed memory, victim of the Holocaust, and we honor her memory as well. Rabbi, thank you again very, very much for sharing your latest information and travels with us. And we look forward to staying in close contact with you as Israel is under attack by Iranian missiles and Israel continues to wipe out Iran's nuclear program. Rabbi Abraham Cooper, the Associate Dean and Director of Global Social Action for the Simon Wiesenthal Center and Museum of Tolerance in West Los Angeles. Thank you very much for joining us live here on 790 KABC. Frank Mottek here for United Gold Group. Did you know that for more than 10,000 years, gold has been the greatest store of value and considered a safe haven asset to preserve your wealth? Well, now with the U.S. debt at more than $36 trillion and climbing, a possible recession on the horizon, and the development of the digital dollar, central bank digital currency, it's more critical now than ever before to safeguard your assets like your cash savings and retirement accounts with physical gold. Opening a gold IRA is one of the best ways to secure your wealth and create a stable financial future. Stop worrying about your retirement in the market and cash savings in the bank. Feel confident, prepared, and in control with physical gold and, yes, silver, too. Give my friends at United Gold Group a call right now at 800-753-8534. Mention Mottek, and you can get $1,000 worth of silver with a qualifying purchase. Call now, 800-753-8534, or go to UnitedGoldGroup.com. Mottek On Money continues, 790 KABC. In addition to watching all of the epic developments around the world, we're watching what's happening right here in downtown Los Angeles following this week's protests, demonstrations, and violence after the federal government's move to enforce immigration laws in L.A. and bolster the security of federal facilities, including courthouses, jails, and offices in downtown L.A., as well as in Westwood area, with National Guard and U.S. Marines present. Joining us live now, Mark Wilbur, chair of Employers Group, founding member and former chair of L.A. BizFed, former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business. Mark, thank you very much for coming to the line here. It's been a rough week for downtown Los Angeles businesses. Many have been hit by looters and vandalism. What is the latest there and the reaction from the business community to what's happened this week?
Really glad you brought that up, Frank. It's so great to be on. Thanks for having me on. It's funny. There's so much going on right now, between the No Kings Day protests that are coming up. Even Alex Padilla got, pushed probably to page 6 or 7 at this point with all the stuff that's been going on and with the markets and Israel and Iran and everything else. But the truth is, Frank, I really feel bad for all the businesses that basically from Santa Monica to downtown LA, because, if you had a vacation planned in the next couple of weeks, are you coming? Probably not. You probably canceled. You probably are going to defer to another time. A lot of people, I'm sure, are concerned, even though the Olympics are, a ways off, no question about it, a ways off. But these are the kinds of issues that start getting people thinking like, wow, are we ready for any kind of this kind of protest, unrest, things like that when we're doing a large-scale event? So I feel bad for the businesses, certainly the ones that were vandalized and looted. That damage is obvious. But what people don't realize, all the other places closed, so they may not have their windows broken out, but they're losing all of that business. And small business, for anybody that's ever been in small business, you're living kind of paycheck to paycheck to cover your employees, get your expenses paid, get by. Hopefully there's a little bit left over for the owner, and things like that. So I really feel bad for all of them up and down the line. So if you get a chance to go into a small business this weekend, definitely do it.
On the air live with Mark Wilbur. It's just absolutely heartbreaking to see the damage done, and also now, as you say, business throughout the area is being impacted with places shutting down early due to the curfew and so forth. Restaurants closing early because of the nightly curfew there, and it looks like this is going to continue for quite a while. What's it going to take to turn things around here?
Well, you hope we can just get past this weekend, with the protests, and hopefully, nobody gets hurt, God forbid, gets killed in this process with some of the crazy behaviors we've seen from, across the country, not just here in Los Angeles. So, I'm a little worried about that stuff. And here we are, Frank, you're celebrating Father's Day, and so am I. And I almost, you want people to be able to celebrate Father's Day and be able to, enjoy the weekend, and the U.S. Open is on, and all those things, and all that stuff just seems kind of a bit of a distance, and more importantly, trying to keep my family safe and not get in harm's way, and trying to deal with some of the fracas that's going on right now. I'm a little tapped out on the protest. I just want the country to, buckle down and let's get to work. Let's have a great run in our country here for some time period. Put everybody to work and grow our country.
Certainly, and we have to salute our LAPD officers and National Guard and U.S. Marines, Semper Fi, for doing their best to provide security and provide some safety out there.
Oh gosh, Frank! The first responders, the police forces, all of the forces involved in this thing. How many of them are fathers? Quite a few of them, and they're going to be missing out on Father's Day. I wish people would keep calmer heads.
Absolutely. Well, we hope everyone has a happy Father's Day weekend and stay safe. Mark, thank you very much for taking the call here. Mark Wilbur with Employers Group, also founding member and former chair of BizFed and former associate dean of the USC Marshall School of Business. Fight on. I'll be back Monday, more at 4, Monday afternoon right here on Mottek On Money on 790 KABC.
Expert entrepreneur Ed Milet is on a mission to max out your life.
We're throwing open the metaphorical closet doors of our lives. We're going to be cleaning out the closet. What no longer fits? Audit some of your relationships. How about auditing your emotions? Maybe it's your career you need to look at. Get your life together for this season.
The Ed Milet Show.
It's time for a little cleaning of the soul. Let's get a little ruthless, a little refreshing, and a little real. God bless you, everyone.
Follow and listen on your favorite platform.